Aside from yarn and needles, the only two things that we need to add beads to a project are beads and a little threading tool like this one. When it comes to beads, choose any beads you like. You can use beads in the same color as the yarn, or you can use beads in a similar color or in contrasting color if you want to make the beads more prominent, or if you want to build designs with beads. But stay away from the beads that are bigger than a stitch because they will distort the fabric, and choose the beads that have a hole that is big enough to fit on a stitch. So that's basically all guidelines. Now when it comes to the tool, it is very easy to make with any thin wire or fishing line. I'm using a knitting wire in gauge 30, but any similar material in a similar thickness will do just fine. So how do we do that? Cut a piece of wire or fishing line that is about 6 centimeters long, about this long, and then fold this piece so that one end is a bit longer than the other end, like this. And then press the fold to make a sharp, nice crease. And that would be our threading tool. Here we go. Now, how do we use it? And how do we add actually beads to a project? That's fairly simple. First decide where you want to add a bead and then work that stitch. So we're gonna place a bead on top of a stitch. So before we add a bead, we have to work that stitch in pattern. So I'm gonna make the bead, I'm gonna place the bead on top of a double vertical decrease, and I'm gonna make right here over these 3 stitches. So I will make the decrease, and then I stop and don't knit any further until I place a bead here. So when you work that stitch, take your threading tool and insert it into that stitch. Insert the long end of this threading tool into the stitch. It doesn't matter which way you go, whether you go left to right or right to left, doesn't matter at all. Just try both ways and choose the one that feels more comfortable to you. So insert the threading tool into the stitch like this, and then take one bead and place it on the threading tool. First we place it on the long end, and then we slide it down and go down both ends. So both ends are in there. And because the ends are not even, it is easier to thread the bead first on one end and then kind of incorporate the other end as well, and then slide the bead down both ends. Now hold the threading tool and use it to take the stitch off the needle like this. It's always scary to take a stitch off a needle, but don't worry, this one is not going anywhere because it is securely sitting on the threading tool. Now push the bead down the threading tool and all the way down to the bottom of the stitch like this, and use the same threading tool to place the stitch back on the right needle, just like this, and remove the threading tool so that it's sitting there waiting for the next spot when you need to place a bead, and then continue to work in the pattern. The stitch pattern that I used to make my swatch comes from a book of 12 lace stitch patterns. You can download it for free at the Library of Free Knitting Resources. Just go to 10roseaday.com/library. To read this tutorial as a set of step-by-step photo instructions, go to 10roseaday.com/add-beads. To download it as a PDF, join the club at 10roseaday.com/club. Thank you for watching this video and have a wonderful week. I'll see you in the next tutorial.